If the bird needs to swim in a chemical bath to feel safe, the larger system is the issue. Tyson also has a price-fixing record. The United States Department of Justice Antitrust Division described broader poultry industry behavior in 2020 as conspiracies to fix prices and rig bids on broiler chicken products sold to restaurants, grocery chains, and school lunch programs. That is not a small footnote. That is the sort of history that changes how you read a logo. Tyson promised a trusted national name. What you got was a chemical bath, added water, and a history that should make any shopper slow down. Number 5. Purdue. Purdue is clever on the front of the package. It leans on phrases like, no antibiotics ever, humanely raised, and vegetarian fed. On the shelf, that language makes the brand feel like the safer choice. It feels like the anti-Tyson, but the front of the package is only part of the story. Read the fine print and look at the actual space the birds get. In many standard barns, animal welfare researchers have documented square footage at roughly 0.7 square feet per bird at full body weight. That is about the size of a sheet of paper for a living animal that will weigh more than 6 pounds. Purdue has also faced class actions tied to its humanely raised wording, with plaintiffs arguing that the marketing outruns the actual farming practice. Many of those cases settled, but the wording stayed on the front of the package. There is also the same chiller tank process Tyson uses. Same communal water bath. Same water absorption. Same added weight, counted as product. So the front of the box promises a more caring farm story, while the back of the system still looks a lot like the cheapest version of the same industrial model. Number 4. Foster Farms. Foster Farms dominates much of the West Coast. If you live anywhere from San Diego to Seattle, there is a real chance you have eaten it recently, even if you did not notice. That reach is part of the problem. In 2013, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention tracked a multi-state outbreak of Salmonella Heidelberg infections that was linked directly to Foster Farms chicken. The investigation identified 634 confirmed cases across 29 states, and the strain showed resistance to multiple first-line antibiotics. The recall response was partial, and the company was slow enough that Costco had to pull Foster Farms rotisserie chicken products from shelves during a September window after United States Department of Agriculture testing identified the outbreak strain in intact product at the plant. Then came the ownership shift. In 2022, Foster Farms was acquired by a private equity firm in a multi-billion-dollar deal that took the company off the public markets and restructured its debt. The brand name stayed the same. The money behind it changed. Independent welfare reporting in 2024 and 2025 also flagged Foster Farms as one of the producers with the largest gap between front-of-package marketing and barn-level practice in the western United States. So the heritage image remains, but the corporate reality is different. That is a gap worth noticing. Number 3. Pilgrim's Pride. You will not usually see Pilgrim's Pride on a shelf in the same way you see Great Value or Tyson. That is exactly what makes the company so important. Pilgrim's Pride is a business-to-business giant. It sells directly to supermarkets, fast food chains, school lunch programs, and food service distributors under customer brands, not its own. You have almost certainly eaten it. You just may never have seen the name on the package. In 2020, Pilgrim's Pride pleaded guilty in federal court to conspiracy to fix prices and rig bids for broiler chickens. The United States Department of Justice Antitrust Division announced a criminal fine of roughly $107 million. That number should stop anyone who cares about school food in their tracks, because school lunch contracts were directly implicated in the filings. This is the invisible supplier problem. Your school district was bidding against other districts for the same chicken, and the company at the center of the supply chain had already agreed on the bids in advance. Pilgrim's Pride is also majority owned by JBS, the Brazilian meat giant, with its own long history of corruption settlements and worker condition disputes. So the name on the tray may be different, but the structure underneath still matters. Pilgrim's Pride promised you nothing on the package, because its name usually never reaches the package. What you got was the hidden supplier setting the price of the food before anyone ever sat down to eat it. Number 2. Costco and Kroger rotisserie chicken. This one stings a little, because rotisserie chicken is supposed to be the easy win. You walk in, you grab the bird, you take it home, and dinner is done. Costco built a famous version of that promise around the $4.99 rotisserie bird. The company has even said it will lose money on the chicken because the price pulls people into the store. It feels like the simplest meal in the aisle. Now read the label. Whole chicken, water, salt, sodium phosphates, hydrolyzed casein, modified cornstarch, sugar, dextrose, chicken broth, isolated soy protein, carrageenan, and more. That is not a plain chicken. That is a chicken with a recipe on it. The bird is injected with that solution before it ever hits the rotisserie, which is why the meat pulls so cleanly off the bone and the skin looks so even. That is not craft. That is sodium phosphate pulling moisture into the muscle and holding it there. The Costco rotisserie chicken label has also been the subject of at least one class action complaint, alleging that the company marketed the bird as having no preservatives while injecting it with sodium phosphate and other compounds that act functionally as preservatives. The case was unsettled at the time of the source material. The problem is not the existence of a roast chicken. The problem is the recipe you did not ask for, and the feeling that a whole bird must be a simpler choice than it really is. Kroger rotisserie chicken fits the same mental trap. The package looks like a fast and trustworthy dinner solution, but the larger lesson is the same. A ready bird is not always a plain bird. Number 1. Wayne Sanderson Farms. This is the company that spent years defending the old antibiotic-dependent model, while the rest of the industry kept adjusting its language to match consumer pressure. The tone was loud. The message was clear. This was a company that did not want to soften its public stance. Then the legal and corporate side caught up. In 2022, the United States Department of Justice announced a settlement with Cargill Meat Solutions and Sanderson Farms, the predecessor of Wayne Sanderson, in a case involving worker pay suppression and chicken grower contracting practices. The proposed settlement valued worker restitution at roughly $85 million, imposed a court-appointed antitrust monitor, and barred both companies from using certain contracting tactics to suppress chicken grower pay. That same year, Wayne Farms and Sanderson Farms completed a merger to create Wayne Sanderson Farms, instantly making the combined entity one of the 3 largest poultry producers in the United States. So the cultural image stayed loud and defensive, while the corporate structure got even bigger. That is the voice you are hearing when you see the name. Wayne Sanderson promised the unapologetic defender of how chicken used to be made. What you got was a company with a major Department of Justice settlement, a top 3 national footprint, and a long record of fighting the kind of transparency regular shoppers are trying to read now. Not price, not nostalgia, information. Most people reach for great value, Tyson, Purdue, Foster Farms, Pilgrim's Pride, or a ready rotisserie bird on autopilot, because the name feels familiar and the package feels trustworthy. The problem is that the front of the package was designed to carry the story, while the back of the package carries the facts. The facts are what you should read. If this video helped you look at the chicken aisle in a new way, tap like, subscribe to Tips for Senior, and leave a comment with the next brand you want me to review. Then watch the next video on the screen so you can keep making better choices without extra guesswork. This has been Tips for Senior. What is really in your cart? Most people buy chicken the same way they buy milk or bread. They look for a familiar name, a price that feels fair, and a package that seems trustworthy at first glance. Welcome to Tips for Senior. Today we are looking at 11 chicken choices from major grocery chains in the United States, and the uncomfortable truth is that only 4 really earn a place in the fridge. This is not mainly a story about a sudden recall or a dramatic food scare. It is a story about what the label is allowed to say and what the label quietly leaves out. Nobody has to break a law for a package to mislead you. That is what makes the whole shelf so frustrating. You walk in looking for one simple thing: protein, a clean dinner, something that feels basic and dependable. Instead, you find words like natural, farm fresh, no added hormones, and air chilled, all wrapped around a product that may still be heavily processed behind the scenes. Once you understand 4 ideas, the entire aisle starts to look different. Air chilled, water chilled, woody breast, saline injection. Those 4 terms separate the best chicken from the rest. If this kind of breakdown helps, tap like now and subscribe to Tips for Senior. We turn one food category into clear language every week so you can shop with more confidence. Number 7. Great value. Walk into almost any Walmart store in the country, and you will see the bright blue Great Value bag sitting there like a simple answer. The price is low. The brand is familiar. The brain wants to stop thinking right there. That is exactly where the problem begins. The breast can look pale, almost translucent, with thin white lines running through the muscle. That pattern is called white striping. It is not a cosmetic quirk. It is a muscle damage pattern. A peer-reviewed study published in PLOS One confirmed that this kind of striping has become common in fast-growing commercial broilers. Researchers from the University of Bologna and Cornell put real numbers behind what shoppers could already see. The majority of skinless breast fillets on shelves showed this exact pattern, and some also showed woody breast, where the muscle becomes firm and bulged because the fibers have torn inside the tissue. That is what happens when a bird is bred to grow so fast that the muscle outruns its own blood supply and starts scarring itself. Great Value promised affordable family protein. What you often get is chicken that was shaped by maximum feed conversion and minimum cost, with visible tissue damage built into the result. There is also a simple kitchen test that helps. Flip the breast fillet over and look at it under a strong light. If you see parallel white stripes running through the muscle, that is your first warning. If the fillet feels unusually firm, that is your second warning. If the word solution appears on the label, that means the bird was placed in a communal water bath before packaging. That kind of label rarely gets the same attention as the price tag. It should. Number 6. Tyson. Tyson is everywhere. It is on nuggets, on rotisserie birds, on freezer cases, on school lunch trays, and on a huge share of chicken sold in the United States. If you have bought chicken in this country, there is a good chance you have bought Tyson. That is why the brand matters so much. The biggest tell is the chiller tank. After slaughter, the birds are dropped into a giant communal water bath with thousands of other birds. They tumble together while soaking in a chlorine or peroxide solution meant to reduce bacteria on the surface. The bird comes out heavier than the bird that went in. Under United States rules, the added water can count as part of the net weight, so you are buying water at chicken price. The European Union banned this exact practice in 1997, not because regulators thought every trace chemical was a poison. They banned it because the bath was seen as a structural mask over a sanitation problem. Before we move on, here is a fast test you can run in your own kitchen tonight. Take a single breast fillet out of the package and lay it flat on a plate. Run your thumb across the surface. If your thumb leaves a slight indentation and the fillet gives a little, the muscle still has some structure. If the fillet feels hard and dense like foam board, that is woody breast. If you see white stripes running through the muscle, that is white striping. Now heat a dry pan on medium and lay the breast on it without oil. If the fillet begins to steam aggressively and leaks visible water in the first minute, that bird absorbed water at the plant. A genuine air-chilled bird sweats lightly and then sears. A water-chilled bird boils in its own absorbed bath before it ever gets the chance to brown. The label scan is just as useful. If solution appears, the bird was water-chilled. If sodium phosphate appears, the bird was injection-enhanced. If natural appears with no third-party certifier listed, treat it as marketing until proven otherwise. If air-chilled appears under a verified process claim, treat it as a real signal. Now the 4 brands that held up. Smart Chicken Organic. This is one of the clearest choices on the list. The company is family-run in Nebraska. It is USDA organic certified, and the chickens are individually air-chilled. That means each bird is cooled with cold air, not moved through a communal water bath. The label stays simple. Chicken. That is the line shoppers want when they are paying for a cleaner product. Air-chilled birds also behave differently in the pan. They do not start by steaming in absorbed water. They begin by searing. That matters for flavor, texture, and trust. Mary's free range. This is the pasture-style choice that actually looks and eats like a different bird. The same family has stayed behind the brand for generations. The chickens live in mobile coops that are moved every day, so the birds get fresh pasture in the morning, and the field gets natural fertilization later. The meat has a different feel. The color can vary. The fat tends to look yellower than factory bird fat. The broth turns golden if you simmer it. That is not branding language. That is what a more natural growth model looks like when it reaches the kitchen. Bell & Evans. Bell & Evans has been family-owned since 1894. The label is simple. The birds are air-chilled. The facility uses a controlled atmosphere stunning system that the company has publicly described in detail. It is also a producer other farmers quietly try to imitate. The company has been openly critical of the chiller tank standard for years, which is part of why it stands out. This is one of the best examples of a brand that does not need a long label story, because the process itself does the work. Pasturebird. Pasturebird uses a true rotational model, and it is process verified by the United States Department of Agriculture. The mobile shelters move daily, and the company publishes actual stocking density in square feet per bird, instead of hiding behind a vague marketing range. That is the whole argument in one sentence. The company will tell you the number, because the number matters. If you want the clearest version of what real chicken can look like in this category, Pasturebird gives you a strong answer. Now step back and look at the whole picture. The bad choices were not just bad because of one recall or one line on a label. They were bad because each one asked you to trust a package that was doing more than it admitted. White striping, communal water baths, barn space that sounds generous until you do the math, school lunch bidding problems, public settlements, ingredient language built to feel cleaner than it really is. The 4 better choices held up for the opposite reason. The ingredient story stayed simple. The process was easier to understand. The label did not need a second layer of translation. That is the gap that matters most.